Previous meeting ran a little late, but so we'll get going. I'm going to call this July 6th regular meeting of the DRB to order. Start by introducing the board members, starting with Kevin.
Kevin O'Connell, board member.
Meredith Crandall, staff.
I'm Rob Goodwin, the chair.
Catherine Burgess, vice chair, and I'll be stepping up when Rob steps out to recuse himself later.
Alex Callas, board member.
Joe Kiernan, board member.
And do we have any board members online?
Nope, everybody's here. Awesome.
Wonderful. All right. So Meredith, when you catch your breath, feel free to go over the remote meeting procedures. Packed house, in-house, and online. So important one tonight, I guess.
Yeah, let me open the PowerPoint up because that's the one of the few things I did not get to yet. Nope.
Everyone have a good 4th of July. Great.
Excellent.
Great.
Wow.
Yep. Really was.
Good weather.
So yeah, compared to the parade last year.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, I think my cheat sheet got moved along, so I'm gonna wing this one. Done this enough. All right, so for anyone viewing tonight's meeting of the Development Review Board via Orca Media, you can participate in the discussion via the Zoom platform using either video or telephone access options. If you want the full video experience, please sign in using this link. You can type it right into your web browser. I'll get a notification that you want to come into the meeting and be able to let you in. Alternatively, you can call in from any phone using this phone number, and when prompted, put in the meeting ID and passcode. Again, I'll get notified that you want to come into the meeting and be able to let you in. If someone is having problems accessing the meeting using either of these options, please email me at mcrandall@montpelier-vt.org, and I will assist you as best I can. I will be monitoring my email throughout the meeting. Please note that turning your video on is optional. And if you're having issues with sound quality, sometimes turning your own camera off makes a big difference and the sound will be great. Please use the chat function only for troubleshooting or logistics questions. Anything substantive on any of the applications should be made verbally. And also please keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. That helps us avoid sound conflicts. It doesn't look like we have any general members of the public on remotely right now. But I will just note if you are someone who is not an applicant and you wish to make comments about an application, please make sure to raise your hand and wait to be called on by the chair. Same goes for if you are the applicant and someone is making public comments about your application, wait to provide any response or anything along those lines until the chair has either asked that of you or you've raised your hand and the chair has given you the option to respond. All right, I will one last thing. In case members of the public cannot access the meeting, and I would get notification of that via email, then the hearing in question will need to be continued to a time and place certain. I will hand the meeting back over to the chair.
All right. Thank you, Meredith. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Seconded.
Motion by Kevin, second by Joe. All those in favor say aye. We have an agenda. All righty. Well, thank you everyone for being here this evening. As I said, the previous meeting ran late, so we're running a little 5 minutes late or so, but got underway. Just a couple, I guess, comments this evening. As Catherine mentioned, I will not be participating in the Granite Shed Lane application. There's a couple professional touch points on that property, and although no direct financial interest, better safe than anything else. And Catherine will be reviewing that application, and I'll be stepping out. I think the next thing we wanted to mention was the board's kind of been having discussion of how we use the deliberative sessions to make our decisions. And we've certainly, over the years gone back and forth through various sort of ways of using that tool. Now we've definitely seemed to have landed on at least the major applications, anything with a substance, not a rehearing or a small update. We prefer to make that decision in a deliberative session. But should note that it really has nothing to do with the specifics of the application other than its maybe complexity. And it's really just a tool for the board to operate more efficiently. So those are my comments. The board members have any comments that they wish to add to that? No? All right. So we will report out on the deliberative session that we held following the June 29th meeting. And we did discuss a couple applications. I believe it was 3.
That was just the 9 Heaton.
No.
It
9
was
Heaton.
just 9 Heaton. We
Just nine.
finished, you're going, but you're merging the,
Additional meeting, it was a.
Yeah, special meeting.
Yes, so we held a special meeting due to a packed agenda from the previous week with 3 complex, applications in one evening. And so we had the continuation of the 9 Heaton Street application and rendered a decision with conditions on that conditional use and major site plan review. And that decision is being drafted, and I believe we've got probably 30 days at this point, or
It's
40
it's
days.
45 days from the close of the hearing, which
45
closed on the
days.
29th.
45 days from June 29th. So that's by mid-August, knowing Meredith will have it before then, but she is going on vacation, so not immediately.
Yeah, so that's just for everybody who's here tonight. They get done in order of actually the meetings getting held. So 9 Heaton is still in process, so that'll come before anybody's decision tonight, but
Yeah.
do my best to get as many as possible done before I go on vacation at the end of the week.
Wonderful. All right, so we will move to our first major order of business here. This would be the review of the 31 College Street application. Is Kate Paulson here?
I am here in her stead.
Wonderful. That is Benji Graham. Anyone else in the room or online planning to speak on this application this evening? Okay. So Benji, we will swear you in as a witness for this hearing. All those interested in providing testimony on this application, would you please raise your right hand and to be sworn in as a witness? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you, Benji. All righty. So we will start with a brief procedural update from Meredith on this application, and then Benji, turn it over to you to sort of give us your case and summary and any helpful information that we may want. So go ahead, Meredith.
Okay, so this application is before the board for the front fence height waiver. There's a lot of different stuff in the application packet. And most of those things were discussed at the design review committee meeting that just wrapped up. And it all got approved. But the fence height waiver needs to come to you. So the standard front yard fence height max is 4.5 feet. There is a option to grant a waiver, and I will share the language because I did not have bandwidth to do a do a staff report on this one, and it's really just one clause. But under section 3101D, the board can waive the front yard fence requirement. Sorry, this is typically your front yard fence would be 4.5 feet, right? So that's what's here in 3101D. Normally, you'd only be able to waive the front yard fence for a corner parcel. This is not a corner parcel. But what the board has done previously is use, sorry, let me go here. I want to make sure you can see it all. The general other dimensional standard in 3002. Sorry, it's way down at the bottom. I can only tab to the standard. 10%. So waiver limitations we have for building, for coverage, for side yard setbacks, rear setbacks, building footprint, building height. But then we have an other dimensional standards clause here in the waiver of dimensional standards option. So that a 10% waiver of a 4.5-foot fence actually gets you to just under 5 feet. Just under 5 feet. I calculated it out before, and I think it was like 4 feet, like 11 inches, or 4 feet, 10.5 inches. Something, I mean, something really, really, really close to 5 feet, but not quite. And so that's the waiver that's being sought in general. I think, did you have in here, Benji, that it was actually going to be 5 feet, or you just have the 10% waiver?
Actually, I think I calculated it in inches, so it should be pretty precise.
Awesome. You're great. But it's specifically for the 10% waiver is
Wonderful.
what he's requesting. And it's a front yard. So you've done it before. And so it's available. And I think it's up to Benji to just make the case.
Yeah, so Benji, if you could just can give a brief summary of the project as a whole. We don't need to know all the details, but just kind of explain your rationale for the 10% waiver. And if you could also give us the exact measurement in inches, which would be fine, that you are proposing the fence to be.
Yeah, thank you. So we have applied for several permits on this project, and it's permitted to be a community bathhouse. And so we've taken the existing building and renovated it as such. We've made one addition to create accessibility on the top floor. And we are changing the front yard, doing some landscaping. As anybody who has seen this building, which stands out very much in the neighborhood of College Street, there's a large glass expanse on the front face of it. That is slated to be a lounge for the bathhouse, a place for people to sit and relax and look out on the garden area. The initial kind of concept for that was a secret garden. And because people would be coming from the bathhouse in bathing suits, we thought it would be appropriate to have a privacy fence. Ideally, we would like to see that up at 6 feet just to kind of block the eye. But so, we're going for as much as we can get, I think, for the privacy of both the people in the bathhouse and also people walking by. There will be some pretty dense vegetation, so that should help out. We'd like to see how that plays out in the first year. Maybe add a little bit more vegetation, maybe some arbors or some other things that, if we feel like the privacy is not adequate. So we, based on a neighbor's request, we have made the fence on the side and the rear lower at 4.5 feet. That's an entryway. There really is no privacy issues there, but the front yard is where the garden is. People can access that garden. There is an existing patio that we're renovating as well, so people can walk out, sit in lawn chairs in their robes and towels and such on a nice sunny day. But the basic idea is to create some privacy on both sides. And the actual fence is designed to look very similar to the addition and the architecture that we've renovated. And so it's a random width fence with a flat top. And it is finished the same as the addition, which is a rustic preservative that creates kind of a grayed out old barn weathered wood kind of a look. And so we thought that that would be easy on the eye, and hopefully everybody can be happy with that solution. And as far as the exact numbers, they should be they're mentioned both in the there's a drawing, a detailed drawing of the fence construction that shows a front, side, and top view. There is right, so that one shows it in feet, 411 3/8 inches, and I believe on the elevational drawing that shows the elevations, I thought that I had put it there in inches. But the 411 3/8 should do. But yeah, that's what I came to with the 10% addition from 4.5 feet.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Yeah, I think it was a pretty clear cut case. We've got precedent on this, so I would entertain a motion if no one has any other discussion.
I would just say, take a quick peek at the
Criteria.
attachment to request a waiver or variance form that spells out the criteria. For a waiver, it's on criteria 4 and criteria 8. So criteria 4 is that the waiver shall not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, substantially or permanently impair the lawful use or development of adjacent property, reduce access to renewable energy resources, or be detrimental to the public welfare. And then criteria 8 is that the proposed land development, here the fence, slightly higher than normal, is beneficial or necessary for the continued reasonable use of the property. And I think it's the beneficial at this point. Doesn't have to, because it's beneficial or necessary.
I appreciate the context on the use as a community bathhouse. I think that with that context, for that use to have the.
Motion to grant the waiver based on our ability to grant a waiver up to 10%, which they have met, and then don't believe that it violates any of these criteria here under, I guess, section 4. And it was explained that people are going to be in their bathing suits, and so there's a benefit there to having a slightly taller fence for slightly taller people. So
Wonderful. A motion by Joe. I think we got enough there to go on. Second by Kevin. So we'll start with a roll call vote. Kevin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Joe?
yes.
Rob, the chair votes yes. That would be 5-0.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Benji. Just follow up with Meredith on the details for the
Yeah.
next steps here, but be good to go.
Great.
We have to wait for the written decision on this one factor. I will get going on that as soon as I can. I've just got stuff in the queue.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, the next order of business, 0 Downing Street. Is Lucky Boardman here or representative?
Yes. Good evening.
Okay. Anyone else other than you, Lucky, that will be speaking on this application this evening? Anybody in the room? Okay. All those interested in providing testimony in this application, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn in as a witness? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Lucky.
Mhm.
All righty, so Meredith, this is seems like mostly procedural in nature, but feel free to give us the details.
Yes. Okay, so this project to expand and parking and improve the stormwater controls and at 0/18 Downing Street was approved back in, did I say 2022? And
It was 23.
maybe it's 23.
Yes,
23.
yes.
Yes, it was 23. And they do a lot of work in the city, have permits in a lot of places, and this one got missed to request an extension to get the work done. And so the permit expired. And so it's back before you again. So there is the prior decision is in this packet. Almost all of those findings are all still the same. A key thing to factor in is that the plans shown here are the ones that were in this packet right now, are the ones that the board required to have updates to and have DPW approve for the stormwater. So there was some tweak to the stormwater design based on DPW's comments. And so this was already approved through DPW per the board's prior decision in 2023. So these are updated better than what went through the first go around. This application would not have come back before the board again, even for slopes review, except for the fact that there are enough new slopes of 30% or greater being created, mostly with the stormwater channeling ditching being done and a little bit in the back corner, because the revised slopes map in 2025 no longer has this parcel in our steep slopes area. Whereas when it came before you before, it was disturbance of slopes and creation. Now it's just creation of the slopes, and because it's more than 50 square feet of steep of the 30% slopes being created, I had to bring it to you. Even though there's no actual building associated with it. I couldn't approve this administratively this go around, so it had to come before you. But the slopes are really just the expanding the parking at the very rear corner with a little bit, and I can pull this up on the screen. And then the setup, I can't remember what Alicia, the engineer, calls it, to slow stormwater leaving the site. So let me pull that up on the screen. Just so that everybody watching from home can see what we're talking about as well. Oh, give me a second. I have to switch applications. If I have the whole thing open. But you can go ahead and move forward and I'll just pull that up on the screen.
I have a question for you if you
Oh.
could multitask.
I could try.
So, under other circumstances, the applicant could just have asked for a year extension.
Yeah, they
What?
just missed the deadline.
They missed the deadline?
Yeah.
Okay. We've had a couple of those recently.
Yep, and this is one of the ones where, because this permit went through and was approved before we set our new systems in place, they didn't get the email that we have now set up for new applications and permits that go into our system. People are automatically getting emails now that we don't have to actively do anything that say your application is almost
That was the
expired.
part I didn't understand was how our bureaucracy was implicated or not.
Yep.
What was going on.
No, we don't, we have not previously, in my 8 years, ever really reached out to people unless it's a project where we're actively working with them through the building inspector usually to be like, hey, your permit's getting close. How close are you to the end of the project? Because there's just too many permits for us to follow up
Got
on
it.
all those. But our new system now, anything new going in, there's
Got it.
automatic emails
Got it.
generated.
Yeah, well, that's a good process improvement.
Mm-hmm. So let me,
When
did that go
online?
like, maybe 2 to 3 months ago, that Nick got the kinks worked out, and that's working now,
So it's fully functional at this point?
as far as we can tell.
Right, right.
You know, we started to know, and permits are good for 2 years, so fingers crossed. We've done some tests, but, so here's the slopes up here and then down here.
I guess with that up, perfect timing to turn over the applicant for you to present your case for approval of this application.
Yeah, I apologize for the oversight. I mean, the project is done besides some signage, but because of the oversight, I just felt, and because Meredith couldn't do it internally, then obviously I'm here. But we did repay the fees and here for approval, but besides parking stops and some signage, the job has been completed, just not 100% complete.
So the prior application was prepared by Malone Properties. Was there a real estate transaction between then and now?
No,
No, it's just Alicia subcontracted.
Okay.
She's normally with Malone.
Gotcha. So Malone Properties was working for you, Lucky,
Yes,
to prepare the
that's correct.
application.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Board members have any questions before we get into this? I guess my question here is whether this, we made the request for the approved plans for Public Works, is whether we just say that, things do change with best management practices, or I don't know, maybe get missed, and just we condition this reapproval with the ability for Public Works to have another crack at the apple, just to glance over it and make sure that nothing's got missed in the shuffle. This may be my suggestion, that we required Public Works review before. I think it was partially due to the steep slopes and the drainage, that maybe we just have them do one final review before we reissue.
DPW. do that
Yes,
final-
yes.
I think that makes sense.
Well, one of the implications of that is it might involve undoing some of the work that's been done.
I don't know. I think that they should, they looked at it before, site conditions change, construction, happens. Maybe they are very familiar with it and look at it for 5 minutes and say it's good, but maybe, I don't know, maybe there's an issue we don't know about. I just think it makes sense to, let them have a look.
Joe's frowning.
Yeah, you've got I can see a question bubbling up over there.
So what do you want to do exactly?
It's just basically condition the approval to say that, Public Works should review the current version of the site plan, for compliance.
Said it's already built.
So it was a site plan that's being reviewed, not the site.
Well, open for discussion of that. I think we approved this before with conditions for Public Works to look at it.
Right, which they did.
They did.
Yeah.
Which they did, and we had updated design and the stormwater numbers all run through before I issued the permit previously. There was actually a gap between the board's decision and the permit getting issued because that work was being done.
And this plan is slightly different than the one that they approved.
No. This plan is what DPW approved. It's not what you all saw in 2023 because you said DPW has to approve the stormwater plan. And so the stormwater aspect of this got revised per DPW input. And so this plan is what was approved by DPW and what Lucky went forward and started work on, which is when we were like, wait a minute, double checked and went, oh, retro permit expired like 2 months ago. before the work got
So the
started.
initial approval was conditioned on DPW work, a DPW review.
Yep.
The review was done. The current conditions satisfy that review.
I'm not gonna, the current plan in here satisfies the review. I cannot determine that what was been done on the conditions on the
Okay.
site, but
And
yes, this
In the interim-
satisfies that.
In the interim, steep slopes change.
Yes, the steep slopes. So the stormwater stuff in here is still subject to the steep slopes. The stormwater concerns are still the same. It's still the same amount of impervious surface being added, right? But and previously, when this came before the board, there was both steep slopes under our rules and per our map being disturbed and steep slopes being created. Now, because the standards changed, we just have some steep slopes being created,
Yeah.
but still so many square feet being created that I had to bring it to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the slopes did not change. Our standards for measuring slopes changed.
Yes.
This is the plan set that DPW already reviewed.
This is the plan set that DPW already reviewed and approved and required tweaks to the stormwater design.
So they were the last party to do it.
Yeah.
The First time.
Yeah.
It just makes sense to have it. Okay.
Well, it's either that or I guess where I'm going with this is partially is that we have limited mechanism for a certificate of compliance per se,
Right.
in our process. And, yeah, if it's been built, okay, well, whatever, great. I mean, maybe it's,
I mean-
maybe we're asking for an inspection and certificate of compliance.
Yeah, I mean, you can impose a certificate of compliance. That is always the board's option. It is not something that is always, that is called out specifically for any particular type of decision, but that is one of the things that is an option for you to do, because it's no longer automatic. It used to be automatic pre-2018. Every single zoning permit had to have a certificate of compliance. Now, it's only if the board specifically imposes it as a condition of approval. So you could issue tonight this sort of renewal almost of the permit on condition that applicant obtains a certificate of compliance via DPW review that site conditions. I mean, or, I can do that, and what I would do is go out, take pictures and have DPW come with me, but you could impose a certificate of compliance that what's been done conforms with these plans. You could do that.
Yeah. Can I ask what's the recent precedent on certificate of compliance?
I think there's been one imposed since 2018, since I took
Yeah.
over. So not many, but we also haven't had too many situations like this where the work went forward under a permit that expired and then is coming back before. I don't think we've had any where the others where the permit expired, it was a subdivision. And they had to come back before they could record the plat. So there was no structural change after a permit expired to deal with.
And a certificate of compliance would just involve DPW going onto the site and confirming that what's on the plans is what's out there now.
I mean, that's how I would run it for this, is that it would be, and that's, I sign off on that form, right? Lucky applies for the certificate of compliance with a very basic general form saying, yes, I've completed the project according to the plans. And then for this type of situation, I would go out, I would inspect, and I'd have DPW come and take a look at the stormwater aspects, because those are the parts where I would really need their confirmation that it matches with the plans.
I mean, I'd be on board with certificate of compliance, but I see no reason for DPW to go the same plans.
I think this is a helpful discussion and I feel the same way. Um, so the motion would be to is it a?
Just approve, not reapprove, just
And
approve.
And then the condition would be the, requirements of a certificate of compliance. And I don't know, we need too many details to that because I think we have it spelled out as far as what that is.
It's in the regs.
Is there a procedural thing, this is not directly on this, for work that's started without a permit? Or in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so in this instance, we did not charge there's, if somebody comes to us and is applying for a permit and never had a permit, there's some extra fees on that, and they run the risk of the board saying it's not in compliance, you have to undo what you did. Same for even if it's an administrative approval. If I'm like, that's wrong, you gotta undo it.
Right.
And actually we had something come before the design
Yeah.
review committee previously where somebody had done something without a permit and I was like, I'm really sorry, but that's not gonna get approved. You gotta take that off your building and let's get you through design review to get approval for the stuff that should have been on there first. On this instance, because this was sort of we're acknowledging we have some systems issue and this wasn't done in bad faith, we didn't charge that extra bit, but they had to come back. We had to follow the procedures and get a new permit for them.
Right, okay.
So.
So it depends on the circumstances, it's not always a de novo.
Yeah, I'm not always, yeah. It always depends,
Okay,
on
thank
how it all works out. We try and be as equitable as possible for the similar situations, but I'm not gonna ding people who are doing something in good faith and we're like, oh, I mean, literally it was what, like 6 weeks
Right.
off of the expiration date.
Right. Well, I'll make a motion.
All right.
I move we approve the parking lot expansion at 0 Downing Street. And require a certificate of compliance.
Motion by Alex,
On that.
second by Joe. Kevin, how do you vote? Catherine,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Rob, the chair votes yes. That's 5-0, Meredith.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
thank you, Lucky.
All right, have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, well, moves us on to the next application where I will say we are excited, Washington County Mental Health, hopefully, to have you as our neighbor at 85 Granite Shed Lane, right next door. And you're in good hands with Catherine. So,
Thanks.
you guys have a good evening.
Have a good evening, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Have a good vacation, Meredith.
Yeah, well, you and I'll be talking more because I've still got, we got 3 decisions trying to get done. Before I go on vacation, if at all possible, 1 big and 2 short. I cannot, my guess is, sorry, we get a decision tonight, probably Washington County Mental Health will not get a written decision this week.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, Rob.
Good night, Rob. Just.
See you in August.
Same
Right.
page. Being different. Just time for the World Cup.
Yeah. Agree, yep. All right, well, we can move on to the final application of the evening. Thanks for coming in person as well. It's always helpful to be able to do the meetings in person. Before we begin, it'd be great for the applicant's representatives to be ready to swear themselves in. Is there anyone else online who is looking to be sworn in?
Yeah, Jeff Oleski from Catamount Consulting Engineers.
Okay, wonderful. Well, if everyone who'd like to be sworn in could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I think we can have a staff summary of the application, then we'll move on to your presentation. So.
All right, so I'm gonna keep this really short because for this one, you actually have a staff report. This is a proposal for a major renovation of an existing building, including additions of a entire interior 2nd floor and additions on top of 1st-story bump outs. So that is what brought this before you. And part of that is also there's a footprint waiver for a little bit of a new vestibule for accessing one part of the building, because there's different uses going on within the building. If there had been if there hadn't been any addition to the building and we hadn't needed the footprint waiver, this whole thing, the landscaping, lighting, the use change, all of that would have just been an administrative approval. But because it's a major site plan, that means the whole thing comes before you. So even places where I have said, hey, this is what I recommend, and it sort of ties everything up with a bow, the board is still supposed to be confirming those findings, because once it hits major site plan, it bumps it out of my jurisdiction. I think most of it, I think is pretty clear cut. But it's all up to you as to what questions you have. There was some additional, did everybody get my email with the additional supplemental materials that were comments from Department of Public Works? Joe, did you get that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have a printout
Yep,
too.
there's printouts and I emailed it around to the board. I think there were a couple of other copies. If any of you didn't get them, I did try to keep all of you. There was just a really big team. So yeah, that's what I've got. I did not get any public comments
No.
that were submitted.
Question. Who owns Granite Shed Lane?
So my understanding is that Granite Shed Lane is a private road that is delineated via various easements over each of these properties. So you can see that Granite Shed Lane, this one section of it in front of this building, is still on the parcel that this building is on. But I believe there's private easements all along there. So it's a private road. And so this permit can authorize changes within those parcel boundaries. It can't, other permits would have to be done. Like if the proposal was for Granite Shed Lane to be like widened or something, for the whole length, this permit couldn't authorize that because that imposes stuff on other property owners.
Right, so this is not a cooperative agreement. Nor is there.
This permit, no,
Granite Shed Lane. It's not a cooperative agreement, it's a sequence of easements.
I'm not gonna go into that. This isn't.
Okay.
Well, yeah, beyond
We
the review. Yeah.
enough about that.
Right.
I'm telling you what my understanding is.
Okay,
I'm
that's fine.
sure that having bought the property, Washington County Mental Health Services might have a little more information on that, but I just shared my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll come back up, 'cause it has to do with a question I have for later on, but.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, Meredith. And I'll say in reviewing the materials, like I was definitely focused on the non-conforming conditions, knowing that use and other issues would have been an administrative approval. So with that, yeah, I'd like to invite the applicants team to come up, even though I think it's mostly us. Yeah, if you could come up so you're close to the mic,
Yeah.
that would be
And you
great.
can also just switch out however you need to. Just make sure you introduce who's talking, and you're gonna want to be near the microphone so that the recording secretary can take the recording and draft the minutes appropriately.
Yeah, and I
And
think,
also so that anybody remotely can hear you.
yeah, and we welcome you to present this, however you think makes the most sense for us to understand the project. And when we jump into questions, we'll use the staff report as a guide to give you a sense of the order that we're likely to go in.
And I can share screen if you need me to, or if you want Jeff to, just holler, whatever you need.
So, my name is Sam Beal. I am principal at Montpelier Architecture, and I'm here with Heidi Spalding, who is representing the client. We have Jeff Oleski, our civil engineer, online. And so Heidi's going to introduce just a little bit about the project, and then I am going to speak a little bit to the design, the building design, and then Jeff will kind of finish it out by talking about the site design. And then I think we just talk through the staff report and make sure we're all on the same page.
Great.
So like Sam mentioned, my name is Heidi Spalding and I'm the CFO for Washington County Mental Health. And I'm here with my colleague Karen Curley, who is the Chief Operating or Clinical Operations Officer. And she can answer probably any programmatic questions that you may have. This project has been in the works for a couple of years now. We are basically taking services that are currently being provided in downtown Montpelier on Heaton Street, as well as up at the hospital grounds up there in Building C in the hospital loop. And we are pulling all those programs together to be under one roof. And this is our co-location design to be able to provide comprehensive services for adults and children with mental health needs. Yep.
Can you pull up the planting plan? I think that's the easiest way maybe to look at the site, please.
I can pull up you want me to do it from the
A-
updated?
Any of the, sure, any of the site plans would be fine. I'll also mention that Terry Krinsky, our landscape architect, is here in case any questions come up around the planting plan that need answering. So while Meredith's pulling up that plan, I just want to reiterate, we are expanding the building. We have 2 bump outs facing what I'll call south, but really, it's south and east because the river doesn't quite go orthogonal on our site. So we're adding a second floor within the building. We are building a second floor on those bump outs that you see there. And we're also reconfiguring that exterior shed. Currently it's an L shape if you've walked the property, and we're removing partially that roof and lowering the roof to make it more human scaled. Right now it is rather tall, as it needed to be to cut granite outside before they brought that granite indoors. And so we're removing part of that roof and lowering it to make a more human scaled pavilion for staff. So can you zoom out a little bit, Meredith? Sorry. I launched right into some details. So granite shed is running kind of north and east on your right. We have 2 parking lots. I know many of you have seen this before when the Connors brought forth their application. And so much of this site stuff has been reviewed already, but just orienting you. So that main entrance on the north is going to be where most clients enter the building and will serve most of the function. The access hub is accessed from the south side, and that's where that lower parking lot will be serving clients from that. That's why we have those 2 designated ADA spots, as this will be kind of an emergency urgent care for mental health. We wanted to make sure it was very accessible. So that's kind of the big picture of the site plan. Within the architecture of the building, are you guys curious at all about the floor plan or want to talk about the floor plan?
I'm sort of interested in what a focus group is.
A focus room?
Yes.
So when we have large open workspaces and we're all on a Zoom call together, it's distracting. And so if you need to take a Zoom call, you go in the focus room.
So it's a well.
It's a phone booth.
Century company.
Yes, correct. Yes.
And the client rooms are to put people, it's like in the access hub.
Yes.
To provide privacy for whoever's come in. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a mental health exam room, essentially. Yeah. So if everyone's satisfied, we don't need to go into the details of the architectural floor plan. So maybe I'll just leave this up and let Jeff, you can speak a little bit to the site plan, and then we can start with Meredith's staff report.
And Jeff, if you want to just share yourself so you can go to the points you want to make.
Yeah, that might be easier just so
Yeah.
because I think you can see my cursor that way too as I'm kind of trying to delineate a little bit. But I certainly will try to keep this short and brief. For those of you that were on the board back in 2022, this site, the layout as you see it, the existing condition site plan was previously approved by Connors, kind of as a spec building, as a thank you, Meredith. And let me. Sorry, I'm just going to pull this up so we can. I can share this a little better. Why is that? Here we go. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay.
Give it a second.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we can.
Perfect. So just really quickly, so this is existing condition site plan. And as Sam alluded to before, this rectangular building with a bunch of bump outs on the southeast side is the existing building. It's relatively tall, but currently it's just a single floor. So obviously one of the major goals of the project is to create that second floor. There's an addition on the southeast bump out and kind of the southeast bump out. And then this other L shape figure that we were talking about before is that old, it's really just a structural, no walls, but or flooring necessarily, but a structural gangway that they use for the granite, and there's a roof on it. And as far as what the site, how it was approved before and how it is currently constituted is the north parking lot was fully paved and required to be line striped at the time. The southern parking lot down here was paved but not line striped, mainly because we were unsure of the functionality and use at the time when we were kind of looking at this property when we were doing the spec design. I will say that a large portion of the area adjacent to the southeast corner of the building now, as well as this kind of entryway in between, were previously approved to be paved. And I think, Mary, that just to quickly jump ahead and answer one of your questions in the staff report as far as what is currently impervious area out there right now or how it was represented in the application is anything that we showed as building or roof right now, we considered impervious as well as paved on site. Granite Shed Lane itself is actually still just gravel, and it may stay that way at least in the short term. We understand that there is a shared component to Granite Shed Lane, and probably any paving efforts of the right of way through there via shared easement probably needs to be somehow mutually agreed upon and consulted and paid for through not only the property to the north, but any additional properties to the south, which I think there's maybe two or three. Um, as far as the area in the very south corner of the property here, this is kind of existing gravel right now, just because it was used for construction when they did the work originally. But we did not take any credit for that existing gravel. So there's kind of just a steel structure here still, but it's really what was originally intended or permitted to just be grassed over at that point. Um, Another thing before I get to the proposed site plan briefly, as kind of outlined in the application, there is this existing gravel parking lot right off of Berry Street that Washington County has entered at least into a preliminary agreement for a long-term lease on this property, and it's something that we are trying to incorporate it into this project just as a supplemental parking component. And if we go to the second kind of existing condition site plan, we additionally surveyed this and located it. So this kind of long triangular shaped parking lot, which has a curb cut directly off of Berry Street, but does have there's a 10-foot wide paved sidewalk here that's part of the bike path that was just put in a few years ago that crosses the railroad tracks here on Granite Street and crosses over. Um, there is an intention to utilize that mainly for employee parking. And I'll get into the designation of parking a little bit later and explain, because I think there was a little confusion as to what was presented in the application with regards to where people are parking and what the different parking areas will be used for. But the intent is to utilize this mainly for staff, and then they would use a bike path and then Granite Shed Lane to get to the building. Are there any questions on how the existing site sits right now and or how it was permitted previously before I get into the changes that we're proposing?
Yeah, none in the room.
Okay, hearing none, I am gonna jump to the proposed site plan. I'll do my best to kind of zoom in here. So not a lot of changes. The main one is really to the south side of the building, and it's really to accommodate the building changes internally, provide some additional pedestrian access points, while also reclaiming a lot of that unnecessary rooftop from the gangway and pavement out front, mainly because it's not necessary, and just to really improve the aesthetics around the building. And so what you see as far as site plan revisions include formalizing and line striping a portion of the existing paved portion of the existing paved parking lot in the south, a reclamation of everything between this parking area and the building, short of these pedestrian concrete sidewalks that you see kind of interconnecting the entryways to the parking lot. Um, and then ultimately removing a large portion of the roof associated with this covered gangway right now. The only portion that'll be kind of retained is this rectangle right here that is intended to cover the, I'll call it a plaza, outdoor seating area. Terry's done a great job of incorporating some picnic areas, a bike rack, and then, kind of heavily landscaped around here. So it'll be a nice inviting outdoor space directly adjacent to the two southern entry points to the property, while also providing that connectivity to the parking lot where we've got some dedicated both the ADA spaces as well another open spot there to allow for that function. In addition to that, one of the reasons why we're here is the addition of this building footprint. Currently, the size of the existing building is larger than would be permitted in the zoning district. But as part of the renovation of this building, the design team felt it was necessary to have a vestibule here and provide better flow and entry into this, I'll call it southeast portion of the building here. So this tiny little dark rectangle, I think, is the building footprint waiver that's kind of outlined in the application. And then we are also proposing a small sidewalk improvement on the southwest corner over here, just to we have a kind of an emergency access door here that we wanted to provide a hardscaped access to the parking lot from. One thing while I'm thinking about it is there was some question about providing sidewalk connectivity to Granite Shed Lane. Understanding it's a limited width right away right now, specifically as it gets adjacent to this building. You can see this dark dash line is the approximate property line right now. And the building frontage is very close to that. And so we specifically didn't want to extend the sidewalk out to Granite Shed Line, at least not at this location. As you can imagine, having pedestrians walk out into the street that's with a blind spot probably is not the best for safety measures. If that was something that the board was interested in discussing, we would maybe recommend extending maybe this corner here if we thought it was necessary. But imagine most of the people using the adjacent parking area on the north or the parking lot here could use one of the two northern entrances if necessary. With regards to other site improvements, we are calling for the dumpster enclosure. This is the rectangle here. It was currently not installed, but permitted to be located right at this location. I know there's some discussion in staff notes about it ideally be locating towards the, I'll call it rear of the property or lot. And I think one thing that's a little difficult about this property is if we're calling Granite Shed Lane the frontage, which I understand that's how the property is accessed, but it's a little unique in that this is kind of the front of the building that people see as they pull in. And as you can imagine, we've got the Winooski River here. We also have Route 2 here, and the back side of this building, if that's what we want to call it, is also very visible from Route 2. So when we originally permitted this, we had discussed kind of having a trash recycling enclosure somewhere more in this area, just because it felt like more of the back of the building, and we also want that accessible easily for trucks to be able to pull in and because we do have overhead loading yard bins here for the trash recycling. So that's kind of the reasoning behind why it's here. And in addition to that, we do have a little maintenance shed kind of tucked in right behind it. The enclosure will be fenced, and obviously, this little rectangle you see here is a little enclosure. And I think there's a question about the height of that. It'll certainly be less than the 15 feet. I think for that allows for an accessory or shed use there. And then one last item I think up for discussion, I just want to point out before we maybe get to the list of the staff report is this concept of some additional parking. So currently we're kind of calling for the pavement to be truncated and reclaimed at the end of these 20 spaces here. But I think the owners and developers are a little unsure as to what exactly the use rate and the parking requirements are going to be. Certainly we've gone through the bylaws and confirmed that what we're proposing is satisfactory to meet the minimum parking requirements. But we do have this kind of flat space here that's partially already impervious and paved. And understanding that as part of the plan you see in front of you, that we're actually reducing the amount of impervious in this whole area pretty substantially. We were hoping to have an opportunity to maybe expand another 10 parking spaces here in the future if the owners ultimately felt that the, as shown right now, wasn't sufficient. They'd have that, opportunity to do that. Obviously, the board may have some questions about that or the timing or some conditions of approval, but that's the area we're talking about. I don't think it'll change the stormwater design or the discharge from the site substantially. This whole property is very flat, with maybe, I'd say 2, maybe 3 feet of grade change across the south and north parking lots in total, until you get to the actual top of the riverbank here. So it's, as far as discharge is concerned or stormwater runoff, I think the improvements we're making now by reducing so much of that hardscape adjacent to the building would more than offset the expansion of the parking area here if we ultimately decided to improve that in the future.
Jeff, can I add something to that? Real quick?
Absolutely, yeah, go ahead,
Uh,
Sam.
Part of why we asked for that is construction costs are high and we haven't gotten our latest cost estimate yet. And so we wanted to preserve some optionality for the client to potentially not do quite as much work on the site. And so in that regards, we were hoping for some optionality in this permit application. The idea is that if we can afford it, we will build that parking lot as we've drawn it. If we can't afford it, we may build less. And so that's why we're looking for that optionality as a condition as part of the permit, in addition to everything that Jeff just said.
Yeah.
So that's actually not what was in the record, right? Was that you might need the parking later.
That is what it's both, right? Can we afford it? Do we need it? And so that's what we're asking for some, yeah. Mhm.
Does anyone have any questions on the kind of circulation design here? Yeah, I did have one. Maybe we'll get to it later in the staff report, but in the staff report, there were some questions around the separation or division of staff parking versus parking for people that are coming to appointments or coming in for emergency needs. Can you talk us through, just where the differences between the parking locations?
Yeah, and truthfully, I think that confusion just came from a sign that was included in the landscaping plans that was maybe in conflict with what was presented in the written application. And truthfully, maybe something from someone from Washington County or Sam could probably speak to this better than I. My understanding is that the Berry Street parking lot will pretty much be completely dedicated to employee parking, which makes sense because you don't want clients going that far. There will be kind of 2 separate uses, and I think there will be some on-site signage. We do call for a ground-mounted sign at the north entrance as well as the south entrance here. That I think the intent is those sign applications will come into the city of Meredith at a later date when we have that specific direction identified and clearly designed. But as far as the functionality of the north and south parking lot, maybe someone from Washington County or Sam may be better off equipped to answer that question.
Yeah, so as Jeff pointed out, the satellite lot will be staff only. The northern lot is staff and clients. Most clients will arrive via that northern door. That's where most people will come to their appointment. The southern parking lot will be for staff as well as anyone coming to the access hub. And so both parking lots will need to serve both staff and clients. And so it'll be up to WCMHS to manage that and up to us to apply for those signs when we have it clear on what we want those signs to say.
Before Meredith.
So this is something for the board to just look at when they get to that discussion in the staff report on signs. Normally, each parcel is allowed one ground mounted sign that is a sign that is designed to be viewable from off the site. With the situation you have going here, and this isn't something that I necessarily flagged, you might want to look at, there are some sign options for times where there are unique situations, and normally it's about multiple parcels using one entrance. But when you get there, we can flag it and take a look, because I would not be able to administratively approve 2 major ground mounted signs for a parcel. That would have to come back to the board. So because even though there's not a sign application in here, where those ground mounted signs is part of a site plan approval, you might be able to give some sort of preemptive allowance for a unique situation to allow 2 ground mounted signs, given the pre-existing building and pre-existing parking lots. We can dig into that a little bit more when we get to 3012, but just flagging that while I thought of it before it runs away.
Thanks, Meredith.
Okay. Is there anything else, that the applicant's team wanted to walk through before we move to the staff report?
No, I think we already started to hit some things in the staff report, but let's work through it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Meredith, as she always does, did a very thorough job of flagging everything we need to talk about. And it's probably just best to go in order and kind of check them off as we go along.
Yeah, that sounds great. So we can start walking through the staff report. So you all know we're trying as the board to split things up more, but we're still, kind of in a process evolution getting there. So I'll just get us going. So opening up the staff report and walking through. I think, initial areas that are pulled out for discussion are really just the clarification around why the application's before the board, because it's a major site plan and due to the footprint waiver. I believe if we're starting out just on page 6, just before chapter 300, our sort of initial discussion point is past, just outlining the past decision, talking about the long-term condition on future use and stating that any use on this parcel that requires deliveries or shipments involving trailer trucks requires the revised site plan. Okay, and we already started talking about this. Yeah. So here we are now into the general use standards, chapter 300. Yes, so I'll pass it to you, Alex.
It's very easy this time, because this is a permitted use in the district. And so it is a permitted use. There is nothing more that we need to say. We've checked it against the regs. It's okay.
Joe, I believe we had you down to be the lead on dimensional standards.
I see here that, to confirm the height of the shed, that's gonna be on.
The storage shed,
Yes.
it'll be less than 15 feet.
Excellent.
Joe, I'm sorry. Could you speak up maybe or speak in the microphone? I'm having a hard time hearing you if you're speaking.
No, I was mumbling to myself there. I just asked about the height of the shed. That was answered.
Thank you.
All right, so I gotta determine some of these. Use and parcel. Building footprint. And font criteria.
And do you have further questions on the building footprint?
No, I was just looking through that. I don't believe I do. No, no questions on the building footprint.
Do you want to talk through the context for the footprint waiver?
Sure, so in order to grant the footprint waiver, we need to find that the applicant meets the following criteria. The waiver, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. I think that definitely meets that. Substantially or permanently impair the lawful use or development of adjacent property, definitely doesn't impact that. Reduce access to renewable energy resources, I don't think that applies. Or be detrimental to the public welfare, again, I don't think that applies. So it meets that entire condition, and the proposed development is beneficial or necessary for the continued reasonable use of the property. You've explained that it
Yeah,
is needed.
I mean, the urgent care access hub fit really nicely in that southeast bump out. But as we laid it out and worked through the exam rooms, we realized we needed to provide a good vestibule. For safety and security, we need to control the flow of people in and out. And it was just hard to get all of the stuff into that little box. And so the conclusion was that an outward facing vestibule allowed us to get everything in there in the proper size and proportion to serve WCMHS. And so that's essentially why we want that footprint waiver, and it's a very modest amount to pop out that building.
Okay. So I believe that the proposed entry vestibule does conform, to these criteria, or it doesn't violate them anyway. So I'd be happy granting the waiver for that.
Yeah, right. Any other comments from the board on that waiver? Yeah. Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me as an adaptive reuse project that there are, different needs than from the original use. Alex, I'm going to pass it back to you for
Right,
304 demolition.
Right, which I actually forgot I was on. I mean, I know what you wanted, demolish and reuse, and it makes sense, but it's the 60-day requirement. 60-day deadline. From what is that measured?
From commencement of the demolition.
Okay,
So once the demolition commences, the standard allowance is 60 days to finish the demolition part, as well as including removal of the materials that are being broken down, unless the board has approved some level of on-site storage if it needs to be longer than that. So,
well, as I recall from the plans, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the stuff from the demolition will actually stay on site and get reused.
Correct.
And it would be both the things that will provide a pavilion roof, but also, let's just call them objet. The things that will be in the garden area, things
Right.
to look at, things
Right.
that are tokens of the building's past.
Correct.
Is that,
that would be acceptable. That's not, I wouldn't consider that like demolition waste that needs to be removed or hazardous. That's just parts being reused, which is always great to have.
right? I want to put in a plug for that big book.
So just briefly speaking to that, I did, Connor Contracting does plan to build the rest of the site plan and the intervention inside the building. And they've reviewed the demolition with a local contractor who thinks they can do it in a day. So I think we'll be within the 60 days pretty safely in terms of meeting those bylaws. So I think if you wanted to include it as a condition, just as a reminder to all of us, that's fine. But I think we'll be able to meet that without too much trouble.
Make sure you specify what you want saved.
Yes,
Those
as
demolitions
always.
are pretty indiscriminate.
That's right. Yes. No, we'll flag the things we want to salvage.
Okay. Thank you. Next section for discussion is riparian areas. Kevin, would you like to take that? Because Elvira's not here.
Which section?
3005. I can also do it. That's fine.
I'm not feeling prepared to do that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Got a new process. We're trying to
Yep.
split things up. So the next section is discussing the riparian buffer, and you spoke a bit about the impervious cover and looking at the existing conditions and the proposed conditions. You started the discussion around the rationale behind the request for the optionality around the 10 additional parking spaces and the additional impervious cover there. Is there anything else you'd like to share about that request?
I don't have anything. Jeff, did you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I'll put it over to the board for questions specifically. I think I explained why, and at least some of the calculations. We did provide in the zoning requirement sheet over here, we do have a breakdown as to the coverage requirements, both existing, proposed, and then also including the 10 additional parking spaces. And again, we're removing as currently permitted without the 10 spaces. We're reducing the coverage by about 10% on this lot. And if we added those 10 spaces in, we'd be bumping it back up by like 3.5%. So there'd still be like a 6.5% reduction in impervious surface on the site. But I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Board members, do you have any questions about that?
No,
Okay, this can be up, Meredith.
I think this might be the only place I've flagged this in the decision. And I think it would just be helpful for the board to understand from Washington Mental Health Services what kind of window you would be hoping for the 10 extra spaces if they approve it. Because so a zoning permit is typically good for a minimum of 2 years. Once you're in the building and using it, and especially if you've gotten your certificate of occupancy from the building permit, I'm gonna consider you've reached your completion of the zoning permit. You've completed the project, even if there's still some odds and ends to tidy up. It's at that point that the permit would basically have expired.
Yep.
And so that you couldn't sort of come back at that point and be like, oh, we're at 1.9 years, so now we're gonna add those 10 extra spaces. And so if you could give a buffer window of how long you would like to have the option to do that final expansion of parking so that the board has a sense of what you're looking for there, that would be great. If that's what the other option is, to say, hey, we want approval for the whole thing. If we don't happen to build those 10 extra spaces within the life of the original zoning permit, then we'll come back and get a new permit, and it may just be administrative. But understanding what it is you're asking from the board will help with this decision of any kind of conditions they put on, how we make this all work out.
Yeah, so it really, as I alluded to earlier, it's about cost management. And so we haven't gotten our latest cost estimate. I think that will inform this conversation, but ultimately we won't know until we have everything out to bid early fall and we know, okay, we can afford to do this. At that point in time, we'll know whether we're building those 10 additional parking spaces or not. And so it'll either be completed as part of this work or it won't be done, in which case, if they ever want to expand more, you have to come back for another permit. And so I think hopefully that's okay, but that's why we presented this.
And the other permit may very well be an administrative permit, because right now it would have to be a site plan amendment, but it'd be like $230.
Right.
And potentially issued the day after you submitted the application. So I think, but the board needs to know what it is they're looking to approve, because I have to admit, I read the application as, this is what we want. It'd be a bonus and great if we could add 10 extra spaces. And that's why I wrote the staff report the way I wrote it, because that was my understanding, that I didn't catch the, no, the future. We really want X, put that in the application.
Right.
I'd be like, if we had to lose some of it, we'd be willing to lose these spaces. But always ask for what you want.
Right. And that may have been our mistake in communicating with Jeff. The idea is that we would like to build the whole thing, the additional 10 spots, as part of this initial work. It's just, we're not sure. We're not sure the budget and the estimate are going to be aligned. And so this was one area where we could provide an alternate, so to speak, for the client to consider. And so we wanted to preserve that optionality during the permitting process, and that's where we are today. And so if you can approve it with the 10 additional spots and then we just build less and review it with you administratively, I think that's what we would like to do.
Yeah, I'm still confused because the application, maybe this came from your staff report, the application materials are not clear on how much parking we'll need. Right, there was nothing about cost.
Yeah, so
And there's still.
the need under our regs, right? It's all about on-site parking. Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry, Alex, that was my bad. You should finish.
Well, the confusion extends to the off-site parking, and I'll save the question about who owns that lot, because I've used it to walk the bike path, but we won't go there. So that's, the off-site is for staff, but then north is staff and south is staff and maybe we want 10 others, and it sounds to me like you haven't figured out the parking, except for the necessity of ADA. Maybe we should have another bike rack. I have questions about pedestrian access.
Yeah.
A lot of questions about pedestrian access. So it seems to me that that's something in your project that you haven't thought through. I mean, so I guess the advice would be Meredith, which is like apply for everything you might want and dial it back in the execution, but that, but I just feel that the request, we don't, we might need it and therefore we want you to approve it now, when you could come in 3 years and say, well, these are the patterns that have developed. We need them now and get an administrative approval. Seems like a much more straightforward way to do it as presented as need here.
Right.
Nothing about costs or options.
Right, and that's our mistake that we didn't present it in that way, and I think there was a misunderstanding between us and Meredith in terms of how this was presented. And so the idea is that we would like to build both parking lots to the maximum amount available if we can afford it. And so that's what we'd like to be permitted today, if possible.
Thank you.
Meredith, just to clarify, would it change your ability to do an administrative amendment if we try to permit the 10 spots now and then made a request to pull them back? Or would it be easier if we didn't do the 10 and filed an administrative amendment to add the 10? Does it matter from your perspective, or are they both administrative amendment applications?
So a zoning permit, and this is I've been in this position for about 8 years now. A zoning permit grants you, it describes the maximum of what you can do as authorized by the permit. Just because you run out of funds and you decide to decrease the size of your addition, as long as the addition is still in the same place and complies with the zoning, dimensional, and coverage, all those requirements, what you build can be smaller than what you got approval for. As long as, in this situation, you're not reducing the parking below the minimum parking required or otherwise impinging on some standard. So should the board give authorization for the full wished for parking and you just don't end up doing those 10 parking spaces, that's fine. You don't have to come to me for an amendment because you reduced the number of parking spaces, as long as you haven't otherwise failed to put in some sort of landscaping that was required for something else, right? But if you don't build those parking spaces, the permit closes, and then in another 2 years, you're like, oh, we need the parking spaces. You got to get a fresh permit. The regs might have changed, something might have changed. You have to get a fresh permit at that point. The permit closed out. But if you only get authorization for the smaller amount, and then you want to add 10 more, that's either a new permit or an amendment while this permit is open and the construction is not finished. Does that make sense to everybody?
It would also impact on shade trees.
Yes, and there is the landscaping plan has alternates, but there is I think we did run into a shade tree potential issue. I can't remember. One of the things, because we had some trees that weren't.
We did
Didn't-
review that, and
but-
Terry's check the calculations. We can speak to that one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's great. But so there's, it will change some landscaping. There's some things that are required.
Right.
But as long as everything was still meeting the standards, it would potentially be an amendment if the permit was still open. But yeah, you can reduce, and it's just, if it was something to do with the building where suddenly you're not doing the bump out or something like that, I would ask for confirmation of what was actually built by the close of the permit.
Sure.
But just so that we have it on record what was actually built, and then somebody doesn't, buy the building from you and trying to add something to get in under the wire.
Yeah, all that being said, unless the team there feels differently, I feel like we should just be requesting the board right now to include those 10 spaces and the one additional light pole and the supplemental landscaping, and we could certainly condition it to revise the plans accordingly. But I feel like that's maybe the more effective, efficient way to go about this.
I agree with you, Jeff, and I apologize for the misunderstanding with how we presented it. It's, we would like to build that parking lot with the 10 additional spaces. And so if we can get approval for that tonight, that would be our preference.
Okay. Well, that clarifies what you're looking for. And yeah, and the staff report would have been clearer, I think, too, with, because yeah, now we're looking at yeah, whether the calcs for permeable ground. Does any other board members have questions here? I think this is one of the more open areas.
Adding 10, except for the shade tree requirement, doesn't impact anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the riparian section, just because it's adding a little bit of impervious in the water setback, but it's still complied.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
doesn't result in 20% of the entire water setback area, more than 20% being covered with impervious surface, because almost the entire water setback is green space right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, scrubby. So it would still comply. It was just one of those clarifying to understand what was being requested and authorized so that the findings and the conclusions can be correct in the decision.
Okay. Well, if we move from there to 310, vehicle access and circulation, I think sounded like board members had some questions on circulation, notably around, yeah, staff parking versus client parking. You touched on this a bit earlier. But yeah, do we have any specific questions from board members here?
Where would pedestrian stuff get? My concern was about pedestrian access. But that's not, is there a space in the, does it come up in the report?
Site plan.
Okay, till later.
Yeah, that's 320.
Okay. I'll wait.
Okay. I think staff report walks through the findings from the 2022 permit and recommends that the project, concluding that the project complies with 3010 despite retaining the curb cuts. Any questions from board members around curb cuts? Noting, yeah, this is offset by the additions of the landscape areas. So, okay. Can keep moving. Still addressing the 10 spaces. I think 3010 is signage. But that was what?
Stormwater.
Hmm?
Stormwater.
Did we skip stormwater?
There was just one question there about requiring a stormwater plan. That was only necessary. So as even with the 10 spots, there's still less than existing as far as impervious is concerned. We have to make the determination whether that area is currently pervious. Is my
Right.
understanding?
So, yes. So the standard is that, where is it? It's about new impervious cover. Right, so development that creates new or expanded impervious surfaces must submit a stormwater management plan. So that's one aspect of section 3009. The caveat, there is sort of a trigger point, right? In addition to the newer expanded impervious surfaces, is that if the basically total impervious surface on a parcel in the combined, outside of the combined, so here where the storm is separate from the sewer lines, right? Stormwater doesn't flow into the sewer lines here. The total on the site has to result in 10,000 square feet or more of impervious surface to require that stormwater management plan. So it's two factors. Is the total on the site 10,000 square feet or more of impervious surface? Yes, it is. But does the development itself create new or expanded impervious surfaces? Mostly, this particular project is going to be removing impervious surfaces. But does the 10 parking spaces at the very end create new impervious surfaces? right? Is any of that over currently permeable ground? And that was part of the part that Jeff was trying to address. I think it was Jeff. I don't think it was you, Sam, about what is
I would defer to Jeff on that.
yeah, because there were photos in the system that show some like scrubby grass growing underneath the stuff, and I'm just like, because for our definition of impervious in the regs, but back at the back at 5,101 or somewhere in there, 5,101, packed gravel is considered impervious. It's going to reduce the amount of water that can filter into the ground underneath. And a lot of that is gravel, but I don't know how much underneath, how far that gravel goes down, if it's just some leftover layer, as Jeff seemed to indicate from the prior construction that never got properly cleaned up because the prior permit said that was going to be all grass and just, it didn't happen between COVID and the flood and not finding a tenant for the property. I don't know because I haven't been out there and dug around to see what's there.
Do we know what was there before the previous project was?
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit. Having surveyed this property before we did the 2022 permitting process, really everything between the southern property line and the building was in some form or fashion hardscape before this the existing conditions plan for this application was approved. And so I was trying to pull that up. Can everybody see this Google Earth image here?
We're
No.
still-
I only see your
Still looking at the prior
plan, Jeff.
Okay, hold on. Let me just try stopping and then sharing again. This is just a Google Earth image, and I think it does help contextualize how the site, functioned or functions right now. So, we're looking at the same orientation as the civil plans, and so what we're really talking about is this area here, which had the gangway, used to be used for, transport and transfer of the granite slabs, and it's everything in this area, is pretty much gravel. It's just not been used for 5 years, and so grass has kind of gotten up and in between or whatnot. However, I will say, as part of that 22 permitting process, the intent was this for it to be reclaimed. It just hasn't been fully reclaimed yet because no one ever moved in here and we never permitted a use for it quite yet. So, it's I guess it's a little bit of both. It's supposed to be grass. So from I think of if you're talking about a letter of the law as far as is the addition of that 10 spaces new impervious, it's new to what it's permitted for. But I still think personally, being a stormwater engineer, someone who deals with it regularly, is that understanding this is all one big flat area. The majority in this area gets into these 4 catch basins and discharges to a controlled stone dispersion pad at the bottom of the bank here at the river anyway. That the reduction of impervious in all this area is more than offsetting and improving the water quality of discharge than the addition of these 10 spaces would be, assuming that this all gets done per the approved plan. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So given all that information, kind of knowing what we know about the previous use of that area and not having personally taken a shovel to it, it seems like those 10 extra spots are being built over something that's pretty impervious right now. And I think if we kind of agree on that, then we can avoid a stormwater management plan. Does anyone have any objections? Anyone have any objections to that?
I agree. It's essentially impervious as a gray field.
And then when you add on top the fact that they're reducing the overall impervious on the site, I think
Yeah.
we can move on from stormwater.
I mean, if we're not convinced that settles the battle, then I'll just stick it on the shelf for further consideration as we approach the.
I mean, do board members think further consideration is needed?
We're talking about impervious or 10 parking spaces?
Impervious. I think.
Impervious.
Just get
Yeah.
the
I
impervious.
think the
Right,
numbers
just-
for the impervious work.
Okay,
Yeah,
Let's just
okay.
leave it alone.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Awesome.
there is a problem though in this section with snow removal, snow storage. Speaking of permeable.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading
Jumping
that.
back to the.
Yeah, we can touch on that in a bit here.
Yep, snow storage is, I think, in the 3011.
yeah, that's
I was just thinking of water.
Yep.
coming up next.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Okay,
Is that the section we're going to?
yeah, our board members
3011.
comfortable to go on to 3011.
Yes.
Okay, parking and loading areas.
Should I miss anything?
Yeah, we had the questions around snow removal. I mean, would the applicant's team like to speak to that?
Yeah, I can chime in because I definitely remember a conversation about this specifically when we were going through the original site plan approval. And understanding it's a little awkward of a site. But what I will say is what we discussed originally was that the majority of the snow removal would be done at the end of the parking areas, which I think would still be the case. There's the scale of this plan is pretty big, but there's generally like 20 to 30 feet above the top of bank to the end of these parking areas. And additionally, Terry's done a good job with the landscaping design to still allow for snow removal areas to be located on adjacent to the parking areas as well. And we're also, this southeast corner of the building here, which all used to be hardscaped with really no location to put the snow removal, now actually adds as an additional snow storage space area. So, I think the site as proposed is actually better than was previously approved. I understand that's not in itself a means for justification of approval, but I guess I would turn it over to the board with specific questions as to why they don't think the site would function appropriately for snow removal at this location.
It's not that we don't think it would, it's just that it's not shown.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
unclear in the site plan materials.
It's just
So,
one of the things where it says that you have to have a snow storage space or spaces designated as part of the site plan.
Yeah, and we're happy to add some rectangular areas and hatched areas on the proposed site plan that would clearly delineate where the intent of that snow removal is.
okay, I think that answers that question. Next is 3012 signage.
Wait, did we
Oh.
have, and we already determined we're not going to go over the 22 supplemental offsite parking spots. That was just a staff note,
Yeah,
not subject to regulation at this time, as they're not new development and they're not required by 3011. So
Yep.
just wanted to get that into the.
I know Alex had some questions about that though.
No, Mike,
Nope, okay.
no. Red,
Okay.
red type, red herring.
It's.
I will say what, I know we mentioned before that we'd be ultimately following up with a sign application in the future, but to mirror this point before about the request for 2 ground mounted signs, if without detail of what those signs look like, if there's an opportunity for us to discuss and flush out a potential waiver request and approval, given the very unique structure and layout of this property with the building more or less bifurcating the lot and not allowing us to, I feel like one sign on the north side of that building, no matter how well articulated or detailed and diagrammed, would still maybe not allow for proper direction of users as they got to that south parking lot. So I'm just curious as to what the board's take is on the potential for 2 ground mounted signs, given the physical characteristics of the site.
I mean, logically, that makes sense to me, but we have to justify it, right?
yeah. And I mean, I think a suggestion in the staff report around comprehensive signage plan, that's actually broader than saying, oh, is it going to be one sign or 2 signs? Which, that makes sense to me, in that you also have different users with different needs coming onto multiple locations for parking.
So if we were to do that and make as a condition that the applicant has to work with the planning department to develop a comprehensive signage plan, would that be a condition of approval? Is that what you were suggesting, Meredith? Or do you still think we need to have a waiver or variance?
So to allow for 2 ground mounted signs, the board, under the current regs, the board would have to do that. I can't grant that kind of waiver. I think that them coming back later for the full sign request, because they're gonna want building signs, they're gonna want various
Yeah, yeah,
things, right? But I think I'm just, I hadn't thought about the waiver option for the double ground mounted signs when I was doing this. It doesn't fit 100%, right? There's a couple of items in here. There's a common scheme premises signs, which is saying that a site that consists of more than one parcel sharing a common entrance can have like a bigger ground mounted sign identifying everybody on the different parcels. So we don't normally allow that because it's considered sort of an off premises sign. So there is an exception in here for that. Here, what we have is one building, but that has different entrances on different sides to access different parts within the building. It's almost like you've got multiple buildings in there,
Yeah.
right? Multiple uses.
Yeah, it's almost like
and
having
two-
different tenants.
Right, and 2 different parking lots where you need to go to access each
Right.
because of the pedestrian options, right? So the other place to go, and again, it doesn't quite 100% fit, but maybe, is the waiver provision at 3012M, which does have it has an example, right? It's an example where special circumstances exist. The board may allow a non-conforming sign to be moved to a new location or remain in place. So that's a little different. This is about historic signs. Here we have a historic building, right? So I'm wondering if it's dealing with a non-conforming parcel and building that then lets you make use of the same sort of concept where you're like, look, it's a non-conforming parcel, it's a non-conforming building. It's similar in some ways to having two buildings, 2 parcels. It's already got these 2 parking lots, right? One was built, it just wasn't striped. You really need 2 different signs. The signs are gonna be for different locations in there, and to make sure people know which entrance to use. It's a bit of a safety situation, so it's sort of above and beyond what this allows, but I think it makes logical sense, and I think there's ways to rationalize it. And it would just be that the board says, for this situation, you could have 2 ground mounted signs, subject to future permit approval by the
So-
zoning administrator based on the design and specifics.
That's my question. So could we include the possibility of a waiver to allow,
It's
for
you
2
granting like a preemptive waiver.
right, 2 ground level signs to clarify the building usage
Yeah,
and then put it into this language?
Yes.
Okay, great.
yeah.
That's
but-
what I'm
yeah.
thinking is, it's a little bit of a stretch. If it got appealed, it might get completely run over, but
Can
I think it makes sense.
Can I ask the applicant team, is that sufficient for your needs to have 2 ground mounted signs?
Yeah,
I think, yes, this gives us the ability to work with Meredith to present a comprehensive, as you said, signage plan, and gives us the optionality to have those 2 ground mounted signs, which I think will be necessary for wayfinding, particularly for the access hub on the southern side. So I appreciate you thinking through this. This will work.
Yeah, because I think unfortunately, a projecting sign on the end of the building to try and direct people to the access hub isn't really gonna work very well. So I mean, your options are either a projecting sign or the ground mounted signs, and with those 2 vehicle entrances, I think the ground mounted sign is a better safety situation and getting people to be able to see where it is. So I think there's enough basis and rationale between the non-conforming issue, where it was previously approved, but you've got these funky double entrance sides. And there's some precedent in the regs for allowing some waivers. I think I would go with that.
Yeah, that makes sense
If,
to me.
if you guys are comfortable with it.
Yep.
All we're
Yeah.
doing is granting a waiver. They can have 2 signs.
Right, you're saying they
Yeah.
can have 2 ground mounted signs, 1 per entrance,
I'm fine
given
with that.
the unique situation that they're dealing with.
And that was the only reason I was bringing it up, is so that if that's ended up being the only thing that needed to be brought back to the board eventually, that we wouldn't have to go to the board, and that maybe Meredith could process that administratively in the future with a comprehensive sign package.
Okay, We can
I
keep,
see the utility there. Yes.
yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks for thinking up that option, Meredith. Next section, chapter 320 is site plan standards, and the first area for discussion is 3202 bike and pedestrian access and circulation. I think board members did have some questions here, both about circulation, also about placement and volume of bike storage. So could you talk us through that, and then we can open that for any questions?
Yeah. So Jeff, as currently shown, we have a bike rack underneath the new pavilion, correct, on the south side, but otherwise we're not showing any other bike racks. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, correct. It's in the plaza here covered, is the intent to have the bike rack. And I believe there was a detail provided in Terry's landscaping plans for that.
Yeah. And so I happen to agree with Meredith's suggestion that we add bike racks to the northern entrance. I think that was an oversight on our part to not have bike rack for visitors on the northern entrance. And so if you want to condition the site plan approval with that, I think that's acceptable to
Okay.
us.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, I think that's
makes
good
sense.
to hear,
Bike rack.
especially, yeah, with it being on the bike,
Two parking
bike,
lots, two
bike
stops,
trails.
two-
Yep,
yeah.
to everything. Yeah.
I think we were thinking about the staff cycling to the site, and we've neglected to make provisions for visitors or clients. And so that was an oversight on our part.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. Did board members have any other questions on the internal pedestrian walkways? Anything else?
My questions are about pedestrian access to the building.
That sounds
I
pretty
mean, for
difficult.
example, the access hub that you currently use, which I've known through 4 incarnations. I think blue and paint was the last one. People can just walk to.
Yep.
And this is a building that people can also walk to. I mean, it's on the bike path in effect, but there's no provision for pedestrians, let alone motorized wheelchairs or, you know, ways in which people might want to access that building.
I understand what you're saying. We're limited with what we can do with Granite Shed Lane for the reasons that were highlighted earlier in terms of the shared ownership of it and the fact that it's a private street. We did look at opportunities to improve it. It's difficult. We're right next to the railroad. We're impinged on the northern side of our building and how it runs along Granite Shed Lane. And so Jeff, you did a little bit of survey work trying to understand that better. Do you want to speak more to that?
Yeah, so what certainly one thing we discussed when we heard that there was some impetus of utilizing the the satellite parking area here, understanding there's the bike path that comes across and at least gets us across the railroad tracks was, well, how do we get pedestrians from here to the site effectively? And the problem is really twofold from our standpoint. Is one is we've got the railroad right away here, and as I'm sure many are aware, that getting any approval or work done within that right away is pretty much impossible. And that the railroad company would not entertain any encroachment into their right away. Secondarily, we do have the width of Granite Shed Lane here that's kind of shown in the shaded area, but that the property owner to the north of us here, this building, directly adjacent to Granite Shed Lane, this is all currently gravel. But it's permitted, I'm assuming it's permitted, but it's utilized for perpendicular parking spaces. So providing any specific dedicated pedestrian way, whether it was a sidewalk or even line striping or something, not only understanding that we need to get everybody to buy into it, but I would be proposing something on someone else's lot, is why we were not able to entertain that at this time. As we discussed paving Granite Shed Lane, which I think is at the end of the day, the preference of the applicant in front of you, an application in front of you down the road at some point, we would have to work with this property owner and discuss what options are available to us here. But it is pretty limited because it, unfortunately, even though it's a shared private right of way, It's also not a very wide one, with it being, 20 to 24 feet wide. And so it really limits when we've got two-way traffic already utilizing this, it kind of limits our opportunity. I will say a benefit of this whole site is just to the south of this property, is one or two more businesses, but it's a dead end road. So the volume and amount of traffic that go up and down this road isn't substantially high, I would say. Compared to obviously to Granite Street or Berry Street, obviously. And so we were trying to, think through a little bit, as far as, what could we provide? What did we need to provide? What was the best way to do it to provide access to, what ultimately is five entry points to the building. We've got the main access up here with the new vestibule. There's a couple doors. There's actually two doors here, which is why this sidewalk continues. There's another main entrance here. The northern main entrance is at this location, and then there's another emergency access here. And we discussed, well, do we take the sidewalk and do we extend it out to Granite Street, Shed Lane here, or do we just extend this one over? This one we felt 100% not comfortable with just because of the safety concerns. And then we ultimately decided, and again, if the board has a strong preference, we're happy to extend this over, but it can't really go anywhere, and it still would be in direct conflict with paved component or I'm sorry, access components or uses of Granite Shed Lane here. So we focused more on getting people safely from the two designated parking areas that were ADA compliant in creating this interconnectivity on property versus trying to look at ways to connect to the bike path or anything extended, because there's not a lot of great safe ways to do it. So I may not be the answer everybody wants to hear, but it's kind of where we're at with what we currently have available to us.
So the de facto situation is that people will walk up Granite Shed Lane into the parking lot and then get into the interior pedestrian pathways.
That's what's
That's currently
anticipated now,
timed,
yeah.
yes.
Meredith?
Is there only the one entrance to the access hub, so they can't enter from the north?
There is an internal circulation path, but it's not meant for the public. It's really meant for
Employees.
practitioners. Yeah.
So, I mean, you are going to have people not wanting to go all the way down to the parking lot if they're coming on foot or wheelchair, right? Electric wheelchair to come in to the access hub. So you're gonna have people cutting across that grass and trying to go through the landscaping unless you have just bushed the heck out of it. And I can't remember, I think those are trees there, not shrubs and plantings.
Yeah, they're trees and in grass. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're gonna lose that grass. People aren't gonna go all, and especially in summer, they aren't gonna go all the way down there if they're on foot. And maybe even if they're on bicycle, they're gonna cut across. Just throwing that out there.
Well, in the
Yeah.
winter, there's gonna be side snow too.
In the winter, there's gonna be snow, but it's, other times of the year, they're gonna cut across. For sure.
As I mentioned previously, if there was interest in just, I mean, this is only like 10, 15 feet at most. I mean, we're happy to extend this over. It's at a natural high point in the grading plan anyway. We have two catch basins here. It'd be a very simple extension of that and wouldn't significantly impact the impervious area on the property if we felt it allowed pedestrians of Granite Shed Lane to more immediately access, the building. I again would just strongly advise not extending the sidewalk at this corner, because I think people walking out of here are just asking to get hit. If they're not paying attention. But here isn't much better, but at least when you're standing here, you have enough sight distance to the northwest that you can make an informed decision, I'd say.
Is this a fence of some kind that's on the edge of the building there?
It's just guardrail to protect the building from plowing and cars and getting hit by trucks and stuff. So yeah, there is an existing guardrail that runs along, it's literally adjacent to the building frontage.
Yeah, I'd almost recommend extending that.
Yeah,
permanently
that's
blocking
actually a
off
good
that.
idea, just to
Yeah.
get it around this sidewalk here.
Because people will just use it if it's
Yeah,
there.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And
Yep,
it is a blind spot and the cars are on that side of the road. So
I would 100% agree with that recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that because that plans for the ways people are likely to circulate around this site as opposed to the way maybe that the plan wants them to. Yeah. Okay.
I'll just also lastly add, I do imagine that the vast majority of, users of this facility will be coming by vehicle. I would imagine. I mean, I understand that it will get pedestrian use, but I can't imagine there's a whole lot of potential pedestrian access here.
Yeah.
I'm the.
Yeah, so just
Yeah.
if you come up to one of the microphones and announce your name.
Sure.
And yes, feel
Sure.
free to address. But
Hi, so I'm Karen Curley and I'm the Chief Clinical and Program Officer at Washington County. And I can't speak to the specifics of numbers of people who come to our current site on foot or by car, but what I will say is for the sites that are being consolidated, so we have sites on the Central Vermont Medical Center campus. We have sites at 9 Heaton Street is our other place that is being consolidated. We have sites in Barry that are also moving over. So we have a number of different sites. All of those sites, the primary way people arrive is by car. So it is true that the primary way they arrive is not necessarily by foot or by bike. That being said, there absolutely will be people who access. Currently, the access hub is at 34 Berry Street,
Right.
for example, and people absolutely do access hub, which is our urgent care, by foot. But it is true that primarily people come by car when we're thinking about our entire client portfolio, who we serve across all of those sites. Most do come by car.
Right.
That's helpful. Not all.
I
not-
had the access hub in mind actually, because we
Yeah.
approved that recently.
Yes.
And because that's where, I mean, it gets a lot of use
yes.
and it's well known on the street.
yes.
I mean, the other sites for Washington County Mental Health are less visible and less street savvy, if you know what I mean.
yes.
Yes.
That is true.
But I will say, it's a goal for the city to have more development that is accessible by bike, pedestrian, and yeah, to have the connection. So like we want to see the projects be ready for that, and ideally over time, more and more people are accessing locations without, having to get there by car.
And I totally understand that. I'm just speaking to the current
Or
clientele and the way they arrive to our site.
the notes in the staff report or somewhere about how there's bus service, but on the intersection of Berlin Street and River Street and Granite Street. So that involves, and that would be a way that people would come, especially.
Sure.
Right, and that would
Absolutely.
mean walking on that bridge and then down Granite. Right, and that would be
Yes.
in the same way that the hospital gets a lot of bus
Yes.
traffic.
Yes. I happen to walk on the hospital grounds between our sites. So we have 2 sites. So I'm very familiar with how to navigate. That is not at all designed in the way that you all are thinking. And so I have to navigate with a lot of cars and buses and various on that campus. And I'm hoping this won't be the same mammoth size as CVMC campus in terms of the immensity of traffic. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you. Okay.
So we discussed improving pedestrian access by extending that sidewalk, as Jeff is alluding to. And then I think I also agree with Joe's recommendation of extending the guardrail. I think those 2 provisions improve the site plan. I think to your point, Alex, we wish we could do more, but with the railroad, the existing conditions make it really difficult. And
Right,
it's something we've wrestled with.
Want to keep it on your horizon.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been part of our conversations. But I think that's as much as we can do right now, given the constraints.
Right, well, move on to 3203 is landscaping. Again, street tree requirement. I know the favorite topic of Alex's.
No, it seems to be fine.
Yeah, which seems to have met the
The thing we
requirement.
don't know is what the square foot dimension of the parking areas are.
Yeah, I can briefly
Whatever.
speak to, oops, sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off, Alex, go ahead.
In order to be sure that the, not street trees, but the shade tree requirement is met. For the parking landscaping, we don't have the, square footage of the parking lots.
Yeah,
we-
and so upon receipt of the staff notes, we did go ahead and calculate the north parking area at 10,800 square feet and the south parking area at 7,275 square feet. And I think both ourselves as well as Terry Krinsky essentially confirmed that if you take 40% of those two numbers and then compare it to the number of trees, large beam trees that are shown on the site plan, the landscaping plan, that we more than account for the required coverage. And we can certainly provide these specific numbers to staff as a follow-up to this application.
I mean, if staff wants it, I trust your numbers. Does that include the 10 additional parking spaces?
So we did it both ways, and regardless
Okay.
of how we do it, it complies.
Okay, great.
Right, thanks. We'll note those revised numbers. The next section, which is also just looking for some clarification, is 3204 outdoor lighting. So I think there was some, a need for clarification around the location for some of the LED light fixtures. And Gabby, could we get a clarification there?
Yeah, so and just to reiterate, there was quite a bit of discussion about lighting back in 22. And we made some revisions at that time. And what was approved at the time was 8 exterior pole mounted lights, which are, and I'll try to highlight these on the plan, is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the north parking lot, and then there's 1, 2 on the south parking lot. And that in combination with 7 building mounted lights, which are located, and if you could follow me along, we've got 1, 2, there's a third one just on Granite Shed Lane here, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. We had one on the north and south just kind of for like security measure purposes at the time. So that's what was originally permitted back in 22. We're not, other than the building modifications and the addition of this vestibule, we're not really proposing any changes to that lighting plan other than needing, if, and it sounds like at this point we're proposing the addition of these 10 parking spaces. We feel that's necessary to add 1 pole at this location. I think what happened is in Merida's calculations of the total maximum lumen level is that we had adjusted the lighting to, get a little bit underneath the total max lighting level back when we originally permitted this. And the addition of this 1 light, I think, if I understand the rationale in the staff report correctly, is they just kicked us over by like 8,000 lumens or something like that. And so long story short is, I think we're happy to adjust the lumen levels to the fixtures specifically, probably the building mounted lights to get under that number, or we could even eliminate 1 or 2 of the, I'll call them unnecessary building mounted lights to make sure we fall under that level. I have not had the opportunity to discuss the ramifications of that with the applicant or staff for that matter. But I think long story short is we're very close to the threshold and it's a pretty easy fix. Understanding that all the lighting is compliant with the city standards and is already predominantly permitted and installed.
Okay, so you're confident that the plan could meet the standards? So I don't think I have any more questions. No. Okay, outdoor seating. Can you confirm whether the outdoor seating is just for staff or is that for anyone?
I think the intention was going to be used for staff. There may be some opportunities to take clients out there when the weather's nice to do kind of an outdoor therapy session, but
How are you going to
unlikely.
enforce that?
Sorry,
How are you going to enforce that?
enforce what?
Staff only.
Meaning the public won't come and sit there?
The users, as some of the other language.
We're not gonna enforce that. Maybe it's not my turn to talk. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Well, I guess I'm curious, is that a provision within the city?
curiosity
You're
question.
curious, yes, okay. I'd be curious too, but I don't know that it's germane to the application,
Nope.
so I don't have a good
Well,
answer.
Seating for patrons
Uh-huh.
falls under 3205. If
Okay.
it's for staff, 3205 doesn't apply.
Okay, it's for staff.
Well,
I mean, that has been all, but
Yeah.
not to be glib, sorry, but that has been always the discussion with the owner as we're designing this space, is that this is primarily a staff-oriented space.
Okay, well, I think then we're in two final sections here, 3206, solar access and shading. You have an obligation to demonstrate compliance here.
The
Making-
bump outs are lower than the existing roof, so I don't see how we would. Yeah,
I have to do my thing. I can't go through and do the calculations or do the stuff like for people, right? So I get what you're saying.
well, I guess
It's
I'm
just one of the
confused. What do you need?
Dress.
What do you need from for a calculation? Like, I don't understand what the calculation would entail.
I have to tell the board
Okay, yeah. we
where
got it.
stuff is not addressed.
Okay,
They
okay,
can then apply their own just rationale and go for it because it's in here.
Jeff, do you have one of the axonometric drawings or one of the perspectival drawings that was part of that?
Let me see here.
Well, Jeff is,
I've already said in here that they're lower than the existing building.
Okay.
Right? I put that in here as a fact,
yes,
but I'm not gonna go through at like last minute when I'm really crazy and do the whole like the development shall not shade existing or proposed solar devices oriented within 15 degrees of true south and go through all
Okay.
that. There's no solar devices to the south.
right.
Right? Like I don't have any of that stuff. This is just.
So is that all they have to
Wasn't
say?
Yeah.
That no solar devices
No
to
solar-
the south?
Well, I will address it. There's no existing solar devices and the new roof is not impeding any ability to add solar in the future. And so everything is gonna be sized for future solar. If they hadn't eliminated the solar tax credit, we might do solar, but we're creating the opportunity for future solar that's not part of the current project.
Okay, thank you. Well, final section is 3207, design compatibility. So, it's focused largely on, ensuring that service areas don't detract from the overall quality of public and outdoor use areas. There was one question in the staff report around the refuse area. And looking at how that is towards the front and southern parking lot. Would you like to talk us through that? And do you see any other options for the location there?
Yeah, Jeff alluded to that previously. Did you want to just reiterate what you said, Jeff, or do you want me to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can, and you can supplement for sure. Again, a lot of this has to do with I'll call it unorthodox orientation of the property. I feel like we talk about Granite Shed Lane as the frontage, but it's not a public road, and it's more of a shared driveway, where this building's more visible on the northwest side from Granite Street, Granite Street, and really the southwest side from Route 2. And so this south parking lot for us is really the back of the building, from a practical standpoint. I realize we're having vehicles coming in and accessing this area, but and also understanding the layout of this building and the parking lots was kind of already predetermined for us. So our opportunity for other locations was limited. The only other area we discussed was putting the trash and dumpster enclosure kind of the back end of the parking here, just because that way it would still be accessible for trucks to get in and out. But I feel like the problem with that is specifically with additional 10 spaces is then that eliminates the snow storage removal area for us pretty significantly. And then also does get it, okay, I'll say precariously close to the top of bank of the river, which I don't think we want necessarily there either, as well as being highly visible from Route 2 on the other side of the river. So that was our reasoning for having it here. Also understanding that it was originally permitted to be almost at the same location, just on the other side of the parking area. So we didn't think getting it away from the building would be, an issue necessarily. But that was the rationale. You got anything to add, Sam?
No, I think you shared everything. It's a unique site with not really a back. Every site wants a back where you can take the trash. And so we did our best to sort of create or find the right space for it that also works for the trash truck to get in and access the dumpsters. And so I think Jeff spoke to the sort of unique characteristics, and happy to entertain more questions from the board if you guys would like to discuss it further.
Do board members have any other questions overall?
We're not like, our hands aren't tied here, right? We can just.
No, I think the uniqueness of the building and the fact that it's not, that there isn't a back is good
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
one. I mean, it's,
rational.
it's in the, probably in the least noticeable spot that can be there, and they've created an enclosure for it. I don't know where else you would put it that wouldn't cause other problems.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
Okay.
One other quick note about it from as far as visibility is concerned is one thing we do have going for us is as far as natural vegetative cover, just on the north side of Granite Shed Lane right here, this is like the only stand of natural wooded vegetation kind of in the area. And so it does screen this whole southern parking lot from Berry Street relatively well, if that helps the cause any.
Okay. Great. Kel, I think we have all the information we need. Thank you for being very thorough, and thank you for, using the, design tools. This was helpful to be able to look at the site plan. So I think as Rob mentioned at the front end, we've been moving to a model where we're using a deliberative session whenever it's a site plan and it doesn't say anything around, the nature of the application. It's just a way for us to be more efficient.
Sure.
So can I entertain a motion on that?
Move to go into deliberative session.
Yeah, or do
I think
board
we-
members?
Oh, do we want to close the meeting first?
Well, hold on. Sorry, I'm just gonna, so you want to close the hearing and move into deliberative session, or you're moving into deliberative session and then you would come back out and announce the decision. The way we've been doing it is close the hearing if you feel like you have all the evidence you need to make a decision, and move into deliberative session after the close of the meeting.
That's what
Yeah, I think we have all
Okay.
the information we need.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you all.
Entertain a motion?
We don't need to make this count.
No.
No, I just want to make sure we say the right words.
Okay, could we entertain a motion to close the public hearing and move into deliberative session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Thank
you
you all.
for your
Really
time.
appreciate it.
vote on that, or
Yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate the time.
vote?
do we need a vote on?
Yeah,
any of
you
this?
need
we
a
gotta
vote.
Okay, sorry, Joe,
Yes.
Alex, Kevin, and yeah, chair votes yes, so. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much.
There are more of you than there are.
Yeah.
So pack this parking lot.
Okay, so hold on. So deliberative session is after the meeting,
Yep.
or are we keeping Orca?
Oh, it's out.
Okay,
Oh,
okay,
do
great.
we have to do the minutes?
Yeah, you have to do the minutes and you have to close the
Sorry.
meeting before deliberative session, or you can skip the minutes.
Let me.
Mhm.
Understand where we're going with this. We're gonna do the deliberative session tonight.
I think we should do it while it's fresh,
Okay.
if that works for everyone
Yeah,
here.
it's just after the
Mhm.
close of the public meeting, then Orca can leave and we shut off the Zoom and all that
Right,
stuff,
okay.
versus making them
Great.
hang out.
Right, and there's nobody on Zoom, so.
Yeah, but we've got to keep it up because it's streamed live until we close
Yeah,
the.
I know.
people come back and watch.
So should we defer the minutes until our?
I'm
next meeting?
fine if you want to defer the
Yeah,
minutes.
let's defer
I'm
the minutes.
perfectly
Defer the
okay
minutes
with
to our
it. I
next
haven't,
meeting.
I never even looked at this particular set of minutes.
All right.
Okay, well,
All
that's got to be continued. Okay, further, so I guess the
Motion to adjourn. the
motion
meeting.
to adjourn the meeting,
So moved.
Second,
vote,
Yes.
yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
All right.
okay, adjourn the meeting,
Closed.
thank you.